Welcome back everyone. In last week's video we went over quite a few of the sunny plots and things going on down here in my plot area. Then I had a few more things that I wanted to show you, so I didn't make that into one video because it was going to get extremely long. So today we'll catch up on some of that stuff that I had already filmed, and then today I have a few more updates that I need to show you because things are absolutely burning up here. It has been a very challenging week. This is, I think, the 7th or 8th day in a row, close to 100 degrees. And we're at the end of our summer, which means that the cool season grasses here have been just really trying to survive and get through until we get to fall. Especially when you get a real long stretch of heat here at the end of the summer, which is where they're already pretty beat up. It can get pretty bad pretty fast, and I'll show you some stuff today. This video is brought to you by my friends at Cujo Yardwear. If you want to grab some of their shoes, some of their brand new shorts that I've been wearing a lot and enjoying that, check out the coupon code here for 10% off, and thank you to them for all the support. Quickly, I want to touch on the updates here on these seeding projects that I've been doing. Very challenging, obviously, to this week to try to get these through, and it was not planned that it was going to be this hot, or I probably would not have done this seeding when I did, but it is what it is. Things were already growing, and so then you just have to manage appropriately. What I've been doing usually, now that this is actually germinated and we're not at that stage anymore, is I've been doing a heavier soak of water about midday now when it gets to really intense sun and really warm temperatures, and then letting it sit and letting it dry out. Taking a look at it at about 4 o'clock and making sure nothing is really toasty by that point, but usually it's been holding on fine since it has been humid. And then I will just let it go and let it dry out somewhat before evening, because what happens a lot of times is people think in their head, I need to make sure that it doesn't dry at all, and then they start watering towards the evening. And a couple nights this week, we hit a record, which was, I think, 82. And when you factor in, the fact that it's basically sitting with water on it all night long because of the humidity, you really have to be careful or you will lose a lot of this to Pythium. So that's what I've been doing. I did also put on one preventative app of propiconazole and mefenoxam. So mefenoxam, very expensive product, but something that I've had on the shelf for a few years just in case of situations like this. So you can lose a lot of your brand new stuff that you just planted very, very quickly if you don't get your watering right, and having that product also there just in emergency cases, which I would say this week was, I think that's definitely helped too. But mainly, if you're not using that, make sure you're not watering it towards night. It's going to sit there soaked, and it's not going to be a good situation. Day 17 today on both of these plots, and this is obviously the bluegrass. It's doing what bluegrass does. It came up and germinated very quickly, but now it's just sitting there and not doing a whole lot. Now these temperatures aren't helping anything either. Hopefully it will start to cool down just a little, and I'll start to see this mature as we get going, but that's what bluegrass does. Very, very slow maturity process. So we got ryegrass over here. You can obviously see such a huge difference in how long it takes to get this going, and I've already mowed this, I think, 3 times now. So day 17, much different process in terms of maturity and how it gets going and doesn't sit around. It wants to grow and it wants to keep growing. So those are the differences there, but this one's looking really, really good. So now let's take a look at this large ryegrass plot where I'm having a lot of issues, and maybe I can find a clip here, I think from about 2 weeks ago or so, when things looked a lot different here. So you can see how fast things can change depending on weather and depending on what happens with some things like fungus. Generally, I've been seeing some things like this. This looks like brown patch. You just start to see a circle, kind of looks smoky on the edges. It can quickly do some major damage here. This is an area here where I first started to see some damage occur, and I wasn't sure what was going on, so it's always a good idea if you do have a soil probe to go over here and just make sure that this isn't just simply not getting water or getting so stressed from not having enough water in these spots that it's going dormant. So that's kind of what it looked like, and it definitely is still very, very dry, even though we're going to show you in a second. Down here, it's not soaked by any means, but there's still a lot of moisture in this plug, and so it shouldn't be looking as stressed out as it is if it was just from the fact that it's not getting enough water. Next thing I'm going to look at real quick is what the soil temp is here. And so I have just a simple meat thermometer. It tells me right now my ambient temperature is about 92. So that is showing 84.5 on there. And so definitely not the highest number I've ever seen on ryegrass by far. I had a few times where I've hit 93, 94 at my old house, and it didn't kill the grass, but it was starting to get to that point. And so I don't think this has anything to do with soil temp. One of the other major fungus issues on ryegrass can be gray leaf spot. So I definitely think I have a mix of some things going on here. This plot is majorly heat stressed, no doubt about it. As I'm walking around here, you can see my footprints and how they're not really bouncing back. That's a good sign that this is still on the very dry side, even though I have been trying to keep up with water, but it's just been so difficult these past few days. Now you'll notice over here on this ryegrass plot, same grass here, definitely on the drier side and heat stressed a bit, but I'm not seeing any of those same fungus issues that are going on the other side. So why that's happening over there, why it's not happening over here, I'm not absolutely positive what the difference would be. That's just some interesting stuff going on with these plots out here in the heat. Same thing over here in the fescue, brown patch continuing to be an issue over here. So this is the decision that you have to make at this point. I do have quite a few different fungicides, and I may have to go after something if it looks like I'm gonna lose this whole plot or something else. But remember that those fungicides are not going to repair the damage that has already happened. It's just now that things are the way they are, you're trying to stop it in its tracks where it is. And so if you already have tons of damage, it might just make more sense at this point, especially for me, is to let things play out as it cools down a bit here. Try to manage my water appropriately, and then go after overseeding or some type of renovation work on these to fix these, because I already have a lot of damage in the plots anyway that is not going to be fixed just by spraying the fungicide. So just a few thoughts I'm thinking about right now, as I've seen some widespread damage and it doesn't look to get any better with rainfall or anything anytime soon. Also looking at the forecast, I'm seeing a lot of people say, oh, next week is going to be a lot better, and then there's another heat stretch coming, but what's actually coming next week is a lot lower humidity, and that's going to be a worse situation for me and how dry things are already. It's going to be very difficult to keep up with that when you don't have humidity helping you to hold some moisture in the ground. So really tough stretch coming up here. I do not see any rain in the forecast at all. It has not rained here since August 3rd, and then of course we've had all these temperatures going on, and so a few more weeks of that, things are going to be pretty toast. So the other challenging thing out here has been on this overseed project. I got good germination, and so I've been trying to keep up with this. If I really would just had seed sitting on the ground, I probably would have just let it sit there and not even begin to water it and wait for some of our better weather to come. But it already was growing, and so I don't have any irrigation on this. I've been having to move a sprinkler around. It's about just over 8,000 square feet, but it's been holding on overall so far. It's just going to be a challenge, as I said, as this cooler weather with less humidity comes, to keep up on some of these areas that are larger that I don't have in-ground sprinklers to do anything with. The big field here over there, I've worked it a couple times as far as soil goes, and now I'm at the point where I have no idea when I'm going to even attempt to plant that thing, because basically going to kind of need to be around a time frame when there's some decent chances of rain. So I may have to wait into sometime into September, and I'm just going to cross my fingers that we're going to get back into a pattern where we do have some rainfall coming, but I really can't predict when that's going to happen. So stay tuned for that. I haven't really made up my mind. Just have to keep going with watching the weather and see what happens. So overall, the front yard is still looking great. Remember, this was a spring seeding, and it just continued to really get better throughout the season. There's some spots that I definitely have some things to work on. I have some leveling to work on, but overall, I'm not unhappy with it at all. And so I wanted to get a soil temp reading out here today too in the full sun. It is about 1 o'clock now, so let's see where we're at on this. Yeah, about 85, so let's see where as we get up towards the surface. Not quite as far into the ground where we're at. So more of a surface temp, looks like 88.2. It's definitely very warm for this grass, but it's still looking good. Here's an updated look at the Bermuda too. It has been growing quite a bit this week, obviously, as you would expect with this type of heat. And I haven't been watering it very much at all, and it has been doing pretty well overall, so there's an updated look. Let's now look at some of those other updates I filmed a few days ago, show you the shade area, and a few other things going on too. This over here was my spring seeding that we did, and I haven't done any extra watering on this or anything since I did the seeding. So it's just been the rainfall this season, and overall looks good. If you'll remember back from the seeding, this was the spot that I tested with no blanket. That one up there had the netless blanket on it, and then down here had the regular straw blankets that I use. So this spot definitely very patchy where I did not put any blanket on. It just goes to show you again some different results from that. And finally, we're down here in the shade section. I thought I would show you couple updates on some things here. This fescue has been doing great down here in the shade, continues to mature, so it'll be about a year old in a few weeks, and I've done very little maintenance to it, basically 1 or 2 apps of fertilizer. It needs a lot more, but really great in this shade. Date on the dense shade plots, not looking so hot. They're definitely starting to thin, and again, I have not been probably treating these the way that I should, but I will get an app of fertilizer down here on everything very, very soon, and then we'll see how recovery goes. But for the most part so far right now, looking pretty bad in this dense shade area. This is bluegrass here, and this is ryegrass right here. And down here, I just put a mow through here, but I think I'm gonna have to do some work with these leaves. It's very early, but these trees that are down here drop leaves a lot sooner than some of the other ones around here, and so I'm dealing with leaf cleanup a little bit already. And it got thicker than I anticipated it was, so I could go through these over and over and over again, but I actually may bag them this time. Then my plan for down here this fall, I'd say, is probably do an aeration, and then I might do a light overseed of something, and I'm still trying to decide if I'm gonna go with more of the shady mix or if I may want to introduce a bit of tall fescue, but most likely I think I'm just gonna do the shady mix. The only thing that I don't like about the fine fescue, I love the look of it, but the only thing I don't love about it is it's not very resilient to traffic. And as I mentioned down here, we get a lot of deer traffic through this section. So specifically during parts of the year where it might be wet, or it's the spring thaw, or just certain times when it rains down here and it doesn't dry out very well, the deer traffic tend to really rip up things. And so I'm just trying to decide if I want to change anything with that and see if I can get a little more resilience going on, but I don't know, I may not like the look of that either. I do like the uniform look of this fine fescue down here. That's the update for today. Make sure you check out that Cujo coupon if you want to grab some of their yardware. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.